She is the SSR 5-star legendary card that everyone wants. She is a stunningly beautiful and loyal machine girl. However, jealousy brought her a fatal disaster, all because she was summoned by a useless young man. In this world, there is a cultivation realm called the 10 Instruments realm. It is a realm protected by 10 major divine artifacts. In this world, everyone has their own companion treasure. Since they are treasures, some are strong and some are weak. The strong ones can move mountains and fill seas, while the weak ones may struggle to hoe the ground. But no matter what, this treasure will accompany you for a lifetime. After the male lead Yang Yan crossed over, his companion treasure turned out to be a brick. He was judged as a waste by the master who tested his treasure. He was even worse than waste because even a brick is harder than him. 15 years later, Yang Yan arrived at Cloud Cauldron's Sect, one of the 10 instrument sects, to participate in the sect selection. At this time, Yang Yan heard someone calling him from behind. The person who called him was a lovely girl with pink hair named Manhwa. She curiously asked if Yang Yan didn't remember her, as they were neighbors when they were young. Yang Yan really didn't remember who this girl was. Seeing the lovely girl being so enthusiastic, he couldn't be a straight guy and say he didn't know her. Manhwa, seeing that Yang Yan was also there to participate in the sect selection, immediately took his hand and said, "It would be great if we could be selected together by the section." Although Yang Yan was not interested in girls outside of anime, he couldn't deny that the girls in the cultivation realm were really good looking. The so-called sect selection is a national talent show jointly organized by the 10 instrument sects, the big shots of the cultivation world. As long as you are over 15 years old and under 18 years old, you can go on stage to show your companion treasure. Then, the judges from the 10 instrument sects will make various judgments. Can I enter the 10 artifact sect? The first item showcased on stage was a pair of underwear. This treasure not only makes you sing and dance well, but also has the ability to control your enemies, making them dance along. However, the judges gave it a mediocre rating. He entered the waiting area. After several rounds of selection, it was now the turn of the lovely girl Manhwa to take the stage. Although the girl was very nervous, she tried her best to control her emotions in order to join her desired sect. A pink light flashed, and with a soft shout of Sakura dance from the girl, instead of a flowing fairy dress, a crescent moon blade appeared before her. Yang Yan was surprised to see this, and the judges started to scramble for her. But suddenly, a figure floated in front of the girl. He coldly told her that she could join the Sword Heart sect. At the sight of the handsome man, the girl immediately forgot about her previous desire to join the Cloud Cauldron sect and agreed to join the Sword Heart sect. Yang Yan was speechless at this sight. Didn't she say she wanted to join the Cloud Cauldron sect? What a fickle woman. But now it was his turn to showcase his abilities. He took out the brick, which was said to be a useless treasure, and called it phone. As expected, Yang Yan's use of the brick was met with loud laughter from the crowd. Ignoring their ridicule, he began to operate phone. His success or failure depended on this one move. When he was young, he was often mocked and bullied because of this phone. Although he knew it wasn't really a brick and knew how to use it, he could never seem to connect to the internet. After all, no matter how powerful the device, or how fun the game, it was meaningless without internet access. Now, with the support of the 10 artifact sect's spiritual power, he had a chance to turn his fate around. As Yang Yan's phone finally connected to the network, he began to emanate a huge wave of spiritual energy. So, it's his turn next. With a flick of Yang Yan's hand, 10 cards flew out of his phone. Under Yang Yan's excited gaze, various characters appeared. However, the highest level of the card was only R, and it didn't look like anything powerful. Although everyone was shocked by the spiritual energy Yang Yan emitted earlier, they continued to mock him now. Even the girls couldn't bear to look at him. Yang Yan was dumbfounded too. Is this really his first draw? If he were playing a game, he would have been advised to quit right away. The judges also teased Yang Yan, saying that the green and unique-looking character was rarely seen even among the demon tribe. Then the goblin directly showed off its uniqueness and pounced on the cute girl. The girl was so scared that she froze in place. The handsome man who recruited the girl immediately flashed in front of her and sneered at the filthy thing. He then raised 2 fingers in front of him and shouted, "Heart sword, cleanse dust." A sword suddenly appeared and slapped the goblin. As the sword continued its momentum, it stabbed towards Yang Yan, as if he was the actual target. In a panic, Yang Yan picked up his phone and held it in front of him, coincidentally pressing the draw button. When the sword hit the phone, a terrifying force shot up into the sky and an unidentified flying object flew out. On the formation, a slim and fair leg stepped out first, followed by a well-proportioned body, a delicate and pretty face, and long silver hair. This was exactly the aesthetic beauty that Yang Yan yearned for. He was stunned by the information on his phone screen. It was actually an SSR card. He could feel the powerful spiritual energy emanating from it. The younger sister and the aloof male god were also shocked. The aloof male god asked who the silver-haired girl was and why he should help her with that evil and twisted path behind her. The silver-haired girl did not respond, while Yang Yan stood up with his hands in his pockets, proud. He said that he didn't understand complicated explanations, but as long as he knew that the beautiful woman in front of him was summoned by him with the object in his hand, she would obey him and was different from the cannon fodder and scraps. She belonged to the strongest level. He didn't bat an eye at the incense temple bath and clothing changes he did before coming here. He thought he should at least be rated upper middle class, but the result was unexpected. After hearing Yang Yan's explanation, the aloof male god not only did not give him a high rating, but also pointed his sword at him and said that he was not wrong to blame him. He used the forbidden magic of manipulating souls. He thought Yang Yan only used some low-level monsters and mechanical puppets, but he didn't expect him to also use this poison hand against human girls. Upon hearing this, Yang Yan was furious and asked if he didn't understand human language. He said it was summoned by him and asked if the aloof male god was wrong, trying to salvage his lost face, but the aloof male god didn't listen to Yang Yan's nonsense and immediately attacked him with his sword. The silver-haired girl instantly stood in front of Yang Yan, and the aloof male god looked at her in different expression and was even more convinced that Yang Yan had erased her soul and made her into a puppet. He loudly declared it. The silver-haired girl shook her arm and pushed the aloof male god back, who then immediately wrapped his spiritual power around his long sword and slashed out a sword aura towards them. Faced with the incoming sword aura, the silver-haired girl lifted her leg high and did a backflip to dodge it, but it was exactly what the aloof male god had planned. His target was never the silver-haired girl, but Yang Yan. Suddenly, the aloof and cool male god stopped his footsteps. This was because he sensed a spiritual ray that could fatally injure him. This made him turn back with lingering fear, only to see an artifact that he couldn't recognize. At this moment, the silver-haired girl also returned to Yang Yan's side. Seeing this, Yang Yan breathed a sigh of relief and said, "I had already arranged for reinforcements. I was really scared just now." The crisis just now made the cool male god's face even colder, and he began to fight without any rules. It was true, the cool male god attacked them directly and even used formations. Yang Yan looked up and saw sword shadows coming at them. He cursed the other side for not fighting fairly and asked the silver-haired girl if she could stop them. For the first time, the silver-haired girl opened her small mouth and spoke, Annihilation Court charging complete, requesting temporary permission for unconventional combat module. Yang Yan felt embarrassed hearing these professional terms in the cultivation world, but if he understood correctly, he looked at his phone screen. He saw a button for a killing move, and he pressed it along with the silver-haired girl's permission confirmation message. Then the silver-haired girl's unmanned aerial vehicle sounded, and her long blade started to shatter while her unmanned aerial vehicle began to transform. With the silver-haired girl extending her hand forward, her long blade and unmanned aerial vehicle recombined into a plasma cannon. Then the silver-haired girl grabbed Yang Yan's hand and reminded him that there would be a powerful energy impact later and to hold on to her tightly. This was because in front of them, the cool male god sword formation had been completed, and the sword shadows formed by the sword formation were already attacking them. Yang Yan looked at the silver-haired girl holding his hand tightly, and the damn sense of security made him grin. Was this the power of an SSR card? It was terrifying, so terrifying. He really loved it. This was just from drawing out one card. If he could gather a team of SSR cards, that makes him invincible in this world. Suddenly, at this moment, the plasma cannon sounded the warning. If there is not enough energy, should the backup hidden energy be activated? Upon hearing this, Yang Yan immediately looked at his phone. He saw that the blue energy of the silver-haired girl had indeed run out. Yang Yan could only give up on using a more powerful attack. He asked the silver-haired girl to take him away, especially since there were so many onlookers now. Even if they won the battle, they probably wouldn't be able to leave. The silver-haired girl nodded upon hearing Yang Yan's command to retreat, and then dispersed the plasma cannon in her hand. She stepped hard on the ground and threw Yang Yan out because the sword shadows were already close. Finally, the silver-haired girl grabbed Yang Yan's collar and took him to escape. In this violent impact, Yang Yan slowly lost consciousness and remembered some past events. Drawing cards to get something good was a great thing in the world, but it caused him to lose consciousness. After completing a plot task that he didn't even bother watching in his college dormitory, he collected the rewards for 10 consecutive draws. After the blue sky and white clouds passed, he finally saw a flash of gold. However, he was too excited and jumped up, hitting his head on the wall, and then passed out completely. When he woke up again, he found himself in a double bed with an ugly creature in front of him. Yang Yan punched it and yelled at it to go away. Looking at the strange cave in front of him, Yang Yan knew he had successfully escaped. However, looking at these weird creatures in front of him, Yang Yan couldn't help but be angry. If it weren't for their poor appearance, he wouldn't have been labeled as a heretic. Yang Yan really didn't want to see them anymore. Couldn't they just be returned to the storage? As Yang Yan spoke, the goblins turned into a stream of light one after another, entered into Yang Yan's phone. So, all you have to do is give a command, huh? That's quite convenient. After careful investigation, Yang Yan discovered that summoning creatures of different levels had different recovery and manifestation times. The higher the level, the slower the recovery and the shorter the manifestation time. As Yang Yan continued to observe, he became angry, because every character's growth and skill unlocking also required corresponding resources to be spent. Isn't this just a standard pay-to-win game system? At this point, Yang Yan suddenly became anxious. He searched for it, but he couldn't find his SSR card. Where did his precious SSR card go? After a moment, Yang Yan finally found it outside the cave. He also witnessed a beautiful scene. Under the cool moonlight, a different technological style was reflected, unlike the world of cultivating immortals. However, under that perfect face and the temperament that complemented the moonlight, it didn't seem out of place at all. Meanwhile, in the Cloud Cauldron sect's main hall on the other side, the various sects had a heated discussion about Yang Yan. Only this high and cold male god wanted to punish Yang Yan, while others didn't seem to care. Other representatives were even dissatisfied with the male god's behavior and claimed that he was the only one who called Yang Yan an evil demon from the start. This even includes the green-haired young man, who started behaving ambiguously towards the aloof male god, claiming that he used his position as a judge to take advantage of the participants, and then brought 1,000 younger disciples to bully them. During their heated argument, only the representative of the Tianyin sect did not participate. He gave some instructions to the purple-haired lady beside him. Finally, the high and cold male god stopped arguing and bid farewell to everyone. The disciples of the Jianxin sect asked him if he was just going to leave it at that. The male god said, of course not. He knew very well that now it was only Jianxin sect and Yang Yan who were at odds. No room for turning back, but the other sects are different and each has their own plans. It goes without saying that some are just watching from the sidelines, hoping to take advantage and bring him under their banner. The more we should retreat and advance at this time. Even if we don't move, someone will naturally lead us to find him. Then it will be. Speaking, a trace of killing intent flashed in the eyes of the cold and aloof male god. Meanwhile, on the other side, a stunning machine maiden sat on a cliff overlooking the distance. After deep communication with the stunning machine maiden, Yang Yan learned that her name was Hela, the chief of the formal and mobile squad from the future world. Hela couldn't help but refute Yang Yan with her rosy mouth open, saying it's not Formalin, it's the Niflheim fortress, the last fortress under the polar ice cap. Hela's usually cold expression rarely showed a serious emotion. After hearing this, Yang Yan couldn't help but ponder. Although he usually skips game plots, he still had some impressions of the keywords that Hela mentioned earlier. Moreover, Hela's post-apocalyptic sci-fi machine maiden design was from the game Fifth Night, a phenomenon-level game in his past life that once topped various platforms. However, he doesn't remember a character named Hela in it. Could it be that she came after his transmigration? But Yang Yan didn't really care. With Hela's strength and appearance, she could be a 5-star SSR level wherever she goes. At this moment, Yang Yan also stood up and introduced Hela to this world. After telling her the origin of this world, Yang Yan boasted about himself. He told Hela that the reason she appeared here was because he used time and space leap technology to teleport her here. From now on, you can understand that I am your supervisor. The colleague machine next to Hela made a confirmation beep, confirming that Yang Yan and the supervisor were synchronized at a rate of 99.8%. Hela heard the information confirmation. Immediately kneeled down on one knee, she presented her absolute loyalty, and asked Yang Yan for instructions. In the face of such formality from Hela, Yang Yan turned around in a fluster and suggested leaving this desolate place for now. As soon as Yang Yan spoke, Hela grabbed him just like before when they were evacuating. Yang Yan felt a bit helpless about it. Couldn't she have been gentler with him and given him a princess carry or something? But then, on Yang Yan's phone, a notification from a goblin appeared, which he summoned with a puzzled look. As soon as the goblin came out, it clung to Yang Yan's thigh, which left Yang Yan speechless. He wasn't a teddy bear, why was the goblin hugging his leg? However, the goblin pointed to the hole that Yang Yan had just left, and Yang Yan seemed to understand what was happening, so he asked Hela to take him back to the original cave. Watching the goblin constantly knocking on a wall, Hela slowly walked over to him, and then with a powerful punch, she broke the wall in front of her. A scene that amazed Yang Yan appeared before him, as he saw a dense crystal vein in front of him. This made Yang Yan happily rub the little goblin's head. He didn't expect that this ugly creature would have a hidden treasure hunting function. Although he was not sure about the value of the mine in this world, the quality of the crystals seemed to be worth a lot of money. Just as Yang Yan was thinking about how to pack and take them away, a pair of eyes suddenly opened in front of him, followed by a loud roar, and a crystal earth dragon stood up in front of Yang Yan, waving its huge fists towards him. Of course, Hela had already reacted by the time Yang Yan made any movements, and in an instant, she had rushed towards him and pushed him back. With her sword, she blocked the crystal earth dragon's attack, and after cleverly blocking its fist, Hela leaped up to the top of the crystal earth dragon. Then, taking advantage of the centrifugal force of the fall, the sword blade heavily slashed towards the crystal earth dragon. However, Hela underestimated the tough skin and flesh of the dragon. But in an instant, Hela found a way to respond by directing a gamma particle beam attack towards crystal earth dragon. The attack could not be launched due to the lack of energy from the previous fight, and the opportunity was missed. The crystal earth dragon had already regrouped and launched a fierce punch towards Hela, sending her flying into a wall with a coughing sound of pain. After the smoke cleared, Hela struggled to walk out of the crack in the stone wall and tried to continue the fight. However, the punch from the dragon had already inflicted serious injuries on her, and she could only stand with her willpower. The crystal earth dragon, taking advantage of its momentum, prepared to give Hela the final blow. Fearlessly, Hela faced the oncoming dragon, but with a thunderous explosion, the dragon stopped in its tracks. Hela turned around and saw that Yang Yan had summoned all of her cards, and her summoned creatures were attacking the dragon. Among them, the goblin was the MVP, launching an attack directly at the dragon's weak spot. The dragon retaliated and chased after the goblin, but Yang Yan seized the opportunity to attack the stone pillar above the dragon. As the huge pillar smashed heavily onto the crystal earth dragon, it let out a painful howl. Seeing this, Hela clenched her sword tightly and seemed to be gathering all her strength. With a powerful leap, she jumped onto the dragon's back again and, in the instant of falling, infused all her body strength into the sword blade and stabbed fiercely into the dragon's eye. After a flash of blood-red light, the crystal earth dragon lost its life. Hela also ran out of energy, and her physical form began to dissolve, returning to Yang Yan's phone to restore herself. Meanwhile, Yang Yan looked at the crystal earth dragon before him and thought that this should count as a boss battle. I can't just let this go without some kind of reward, he thought. But when Yang Yan touched the crystal earth dragon with his hand, it unexpectedly turned into fragments of data that were absorbed by his phone. After seeing the reward on his phone, Yang Yan became extremely excited. The reward was much more stimulating than a mineral vein. After Yang Yan and Hela teamed up to defeat the crystal earth dragon, Yang Yan arrived at the port city of Sujin, with his wingman constantly reminding him that his hormone levels were abnormally high and had been for over 29,580 seconds. Of course, Yang Yan wasn't just excited about some learning file from a past life. It was because he had received a 600 crystal reward for defeating the dragon. In the multiverse, there exists a mysterious power that comes into play whenever players face life or death battles with game designers. Players don't want to be treated like fools, so they fight to the end and never compromise. When the game designer bombarded the players with 10 consecutive draws in their faces, regardless of how many game bugs there are or how bad the servers are, they immediately surrender. If there are 2 of them, they'll even reverse their opinion. This power is the draw-to-buy system, but unfortunately, 600 crystals aren't enough for Yang Yan to do a 10 pull. At this point, Yang Yan noticed that many people were looking at him and making lewd laughs, and some mothers even covered their children's eyes so they wouldn't see. Yang Yan knew they weren't looking at him, so he turned to Hela and organized his words to ask her a question. Do you want to go back to the repair cabin to recharge before coming out? Yang Yan asked. Hela responded that she was in standby mode with extremely low energy consumption and did not need to. Yang Yan was helpless, but he still bravely said that he would take care of the mission of running the map, as the previous battle was so hard. However, Hela refused and fell silent for a moment, hugging her arms tightly. Her cold expression showed a hint of fear as she spoke. The repair cabin is very cold and dark. It was the first time Yang Yan had seen Hela reveal such an expression, so he stopped trying to persuade her. Instead, he suggested that they buy some clothes because Hela's combat suit was too stimulating for the ancient immortal world they were in. Hela didn't understand how her clothes could be so tempting to men, so she asked if wearing different clothes could increase her combat power. The intelligent assistant beeped a few times, explaining that Hela's bionic prosthetics were made of the Nibelungen alloy developed by Harem, and if she wanted a more human-like texture, she could change the surface coating. Yang Yan was speechless and didn't bother responding to the two's lack of common sense. He took Hela to the Silver Dragon Tower, one of the highest-end chain brands in the 10 Instruments realm, and led her upstairs to the attic. However, since it was a branch store, the quality of the clothes was not as good as the main stores. While Hela looked at the various clothes, she did not show the joy of a typical girl. She simply pointed to a cheongsam and said because it had a smaller coverage area, indicating lower hardness and elasticity, and almost no defensive capability. Yang Yan rubbed his head, having gotten used to letting Hela choose her own clothes. Hela scanned around and pointed to a direction, saying let's take that one. A cheongsam caught her sight. Hela chose it because it provided relatively less coverage. Relative does not affect action. Yang Yan didn't know what to say. Let Hela go change clothes by herself. After a few minutes, Hela opened the wardrobe. This cheongsam perfectly showcased Hela's long legs, and the upper body unexpectedly matched well with Hela. It also blocked the eyes of some lewd people. Yang Yan also thought it looked good. Classical mixed with future technology, it's quite interesting. As expected, gacha requires gacha, but if you want the skin, you have to spend money. Even if you're poor, you can't be poor to your wife. The maid from the Silver Dragon Tower came to Yang Yan's side, asking if Yang Yan wanted to buy this expensive Bikuang Luyun falling shoulder feather coat. Hela's appearance just now has been attracting the attention of some people, jealous of Yang Yan and starting to gloat at him. Can he buy this expensive clothing or not? Of course, Yang Yan also noticed the crowd's discussion. He seemed to think of something and asked the little maid if she could offer a lower price. The little maid said it's a fixed price and can't be changed. Yang Yan looked helpless at this. Then he reached into his arms and accidentally dropped a few jade stones. Yang Yan immediately bent down and apologized, saying his hand slipped. The onlookers exclaimed at the sight of those jade stones. The little maid was sweating coldly, saying she couldn't make a decision and needed to ask the shopkeeper. Yang Yan smiled at this, and the other onlookers no longer dared to ridicule him. Hela was curious and asked Yang Yan where he got those jade stones. Yang Yan said he got them by knocking down a big lizard and they were in a coma. Hela didn't understand why Yang Yan didn't realize their high value earlier. Yang Yan didn't care whether Hela could understand or not. He said this is called immersion experience. After all, he finally crossed into a different world and finally drew an SSR. How could he not play along with the pig-eating tiger scene? Yang Yan enjoyed it and continued to play the role of a cheeky person after being caught. Soon, the shopkeeper of the Silver Dragon Tower arrived, respecting Yang Yan like a VIP. Money talks, no matter where you go. Then the shopkeeper took Yang Yan outside to exchange for silver, and because it was mealtime, there were food vendors outside shouting, making Yang Yan feel hungry. He asked the shopkeeper if he could speed up, but just as he turned his head, the shopkeeper had already run away. At the same time, Hela suddenly looked alert and watched the people around her carefully. The crowd dispersed, and a person holding a long-spouted pot appeared, emitting the aura of an upper-class person.